Right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today we're unpacking Left of Bang. And listen, Left of Bang isn't just some catchy slogan. Left of Bang is a map. Honestly, Left of Bang is a warning. It's the book that asks a much cleaner question about how we actually view risk and readiness. Patrick Van Horn and Jason A. Riley wrote this from the very edge of risk. But what Patrick Van Horn and Jason A. Riley gave us isn't a reason to panic. They gave us a rigorous discipline of attention. So welcome to this Up Go Wise Masterclass explainer where we're going to turn everyday awareness into a highly trainable architecture. So here's a question for you. What did you ignore before the cost arrived? Think about it. Most of us wait for absolute, undeniable proof before we finally take action, right? And then we have the nerve to call that delay wisdom. We want the bang, the rupture, the hard evidence, and then we explain what was totally obvious all along. But you know what? That is way too late. The authors are offering us a profound discipline of attention to fix exactly this. We aren't hunting for danger here. We're just learning how to stop ignoring those early signals. And this brings us to a massive blind spot for so many high performers. Here is the hard truth. Your nervous system cannot be your whole strategy. You might call your constant scanning discipline, but without a solid baseline, it's really just nervous motion. It literally can't tell the difference between signal and noise or danger and just a passing mood. The proud habit we all fall into is vigilance. You know the feeling. The body tightens, the jaw locks, the eyes dart around. But the mind? The mind has absolutely no architecture to support it. Because as the saying goes, you do not rise to the crisis. You fall to the level of your noticing. The mind absolutely needs load-bearing walls. This whole explainer is really about moving your judgment much earlier in the timeline. It's about putting a ruler in the hand of your instinct, basically demanding that you measure your environment long before you ever try to put a name to the danger. We are completely shifting away from that old directionless model of instinct worship. We're moving toward a sharp, clinical discipline of trained comparison. One paradigm just tells you, hey, trust your gut. But the refined paradigm, it says train what the gut sees first. Because honestly, you aren't necessarily calm because you're accurate. You might just be calm because you simply stopped looking. Left of Bang doesn't worship instinct, it disciplines it. I want you to think of a specific moment when your body just knew something was off. Maybe it was a room you walked into or a deal that looked perfectly clean on paper but just felt wrong. Your body knew it first, didn't it? A little tightness in the chest, that sudden urge to just leave. Take a second and really put yourself back in that memory. Now, let's look at it through the lens of this book. What likely happened is your untrained mind negotiated that signal away. You probably told yourself to be fair or stop overreacting. You treated that initial discomfort as a final verdict you had to argue with, instead of what it really was, a prompt to investigate. You see, the directionless thinker just looks at a bunch of isolated events, but the strategic thinker, they see drift. Drift. It's essentially motion without architecture. And drift is tricky because it often feels productive. Your legs keep moving, you're doing stuff, but it's still a slow, steady path right toward the bang. We so often jump to moral language way too soon, calling a team lazy or toxic or broken. But early on, those words are really just cover-ups for poor observation. The old model always asks, what happened? But only after the damage is already done. The refined model, though, asks, what changed? Way before the crisis even arrives. Picture this. It's a nighttime airport control tower. The runway is dark, just those hard white lines. The radar's humming. A cup of coffee is cooling next to a logbook. There is absolutely no drama. And then, one single runway light goes out. There's no explosion, no blaring sirens. It's just one missing point in a very well-known pattern. Pattern, then break. A trained eye in that control tower doesn't suddenly panic. It just notes the deviation. It checks the surrounding pattern and calmly asks, okay, what else is wrong? That is the core anchor of this entire philosophy. It's not fear. It's not suspicion, it's pattern, then break. You have to refine the instrument way before the world demands the music. The untrained mind is always waiting for the obvious, but the refined mind, it honors the smallest break in form. Form, this is exactly why we absolutely must study normal, because normal is our only reference point. Before burnout hits, there's a pattern. Before a bad hire ruins the dynamic, there's a pattern. The real tragedy isn't that the signs were missing. The tragedy is that no one bothered to build a language to actually read them. So we have to build a baseline before we can judge anything. A baseline is simply the ordinary pattern of a place, a person, a team, or a habit. It's how people operate when no one is putting on a show.
Once you intimately know that rhythm, a deviation suddenly becomes incredibly legible. If you don't know the baseline, well, every single strange moment just feels like a personal attack.
And that perfectly leads us to the concept of an anomaly. An anomaly is, very simply, a break from the baseline. But remember, a deviation from the established rhythm is merely a prompt to inspect. It's absolutely not an immediate verdict to punish. If the baseline of your weekly meeting is loud, energetic debate, and today it's quietly agreeable, well, that's an anomaly. It just means you need to look a little closer.
Here's the catch, though. One single cue isn't enough. What we're really looking for is a cluster, several anomalies that converge. Because one cue can lie to you. A forced smile or a single delayed email might mean absolutely nothing. But a cluster of breaks? That is the true threshold for deeper inquiry. Overreacting to a single cue burns trust, but underreacting to a cluster, that burns time.
So here's a quick exercise. Sometime this week, I want you to literally write down what normal looks like for just one team or one specific relationship. Map out the baseline using these exact trackable metrics: pace, tone, energy, response time, pressure points, and avoided topics. And I don't mean what's ideal. I mean what is actually normal. You have to build this baseline outside of the storm so that you actually have a map when you find yourself inside of it. All right, once you've got your baseline locked in, you apply this actionable framework to what you're observing. It's 4 steps. 1, cluster. 2, question. 3, test. 4, choose. This is exactly how you convert a vague gut sensation into disciplined, structured inquiry. You're acting earlier, and that saves your body from having to apply last-second force. Your stomach shouldn't have to act as your only alarm system, right?
So let's circle back to that question we started with. What did you ignore before the cost arrived? When we really look back, maybe it wasn't ignorance at all. Maybe it was just untrained attention. And honestly, that changes everything. Guilt just freezes us in the past, but training moves us forward. Your attention can absolutely be rebuilt.
Because the point is not to become hard, the point is to become less late. The amateur is always seeking absolute proof, just waiting around for the damage to be visible before finally acting. But the refined mind, it doesn't need absolute certainty. It simply seeks enough signal to act wisely and reduce harm before it happens. Which brings us to perhaps the deepest insight of this entire explainer. Awareness is not more looking, awareness is better comparison. Let me say that again. Awareness is better comparison. We are completely removing the fog of paranoia here. Paranoia just adds wild, unhelpful stories to everything you see. True mastery, though, simply removes that fog through better, highly disciplined comparison. If this explainer exposed a pattern in you today, don't just brush it off as a passing thought. UpGoWise.com. Access your personal growth map. Seriously, bring one baseline and one recurring drift to the platform. Bring that one place where you keep arriving just a little too late, and let's work on making the next bang much smaller. Detection is direction before decision.